Our protagonist is a burly gentleman with a body full of legendary tattoos. This is Kuroda Tatsu. He is the most respected member of the yakuza by everyone. Because of his strength when he was fighting, he even got a nickname like the Eternal Dragon. But one day, he suddenly had an epiphany to repent. He wanted to leave this dark life and would turn into a good and responsible husband and father of the household. Since then, his family life has changed. Let's take a look at the activities of this violent father tidying up the house and cooking for his family. Something that is completely opposite to his life in the past. Then we meet Tatsu's wife. She is Meiku. Meiku is a workaholic. She is an office worker and is the main breadwinner for their family, so it's like the couple is swapping roles in the household. They have one stepdaughter named Himawari, a teenage girl who is still in school. Tatsu's days as the father of the household are always spent preparing lunch for Miku and Himawari before they leave for school or work. In addition, like other fathers in general, every month Tatsu and his friend, Akamaya Masaru, run errands by going around the complex where they live to collect contributions money from residents in the neighborhood. Although his intentions were good, but because of his stature and appearance, he looked like a loan shark collecting debts. But that was about it, because the money was used for good things, such as guarding the security post for the security of the compound, monthly festival events, and for maintaining the garden in their compound. But Tatsu's face was sometimes unconditioned. His scary face often made residents feel scared when approached. One day, when he wanted to go around the residence to collect residence dues, they saw a new building. Tatsu confidently wanted to ask for dues there. It turned out that the occupant of the building was Kondo, who was no less scary than Tatsu. And this Kondo turned out to be a yakuza boss. Kondo didn't recognize Tatsu at first. He also didn't know that Tatsu was a feared former yakuza. But after he realized it, he was very scared. Here Kondo also told Tatsu's story in front of his members. So during the first meeting with Tatsu, which was also attended by a number of major yakuza in Japan, Kondo slipped on the wooden floor that Tatsu was repairing. Regardless, the angry Tatsu immediately scolded him and invited a fight. This of course made Kondo feel very scared, and now Kondo thought that Tatsu had returned to avenge him. He ordered his members not to let their guard down. The scene moved to Masaru, Tatsu's friend, so he felt something was wrong. He immediately informed the local yakuza boss, Iguchi Kikuchiro, about the new resident's arrival. He was also Tatsu's boss. Here, Iguchi had a beautiful wife named Hibari. But don't be fooled by her beauty, this Hibari is also a yakuza member. However, since everything costs money these days, and their economy is struggling, the couple works part-time at a convenience store. Mr. Iguchi is the security guard and Hibari is the cashier. Since they are busy at work, they have no choice to postpone dealing with the new yakuza problem. Meanwhile, we move on to Tatsu's house. This small family is discussing letting go of their hamster. They were upset because they couldn't take care of it anymore, but they couldn't bear to let it out on the street. Therefore, he planned to open an adoption for people who wanted to take care of the cute hamster. While looking for people who would take care of the hamster, the police on patrol suspected Tatsu's activities. Because his stature looked suspicious, the police thought that Tatsu was carrying a weapon. Tatsu didn't want the officers to know about his hamster, so he ran into the boss Kondo's building to get away. But the people who worked for Kondo mistakenly thought that this Tatsu wanted to attack their boss. Finally, a fight was inevitable. Tatsu, with his agility, was able to defeat them. He then jumped from the window to avoid the police who were chasing him. So Tatsu, who was originally chased by one policeman, was now chased by the entire police force, even though he was only hiding a hamster. Residents who were already familiar with Tatsu reported the incident to other friends. They tried as quickly as possible to help Tatsu, but in an attempt to escape, Tatsu hit Masaru, who was trying to help him. Cornered, Tatsu was finally no choice than take something out of his pocket. The pursuing police thought that it was a gun, but it turned out that the object Tatsu was holding was a cute hamster. What had been a serious situation suddenly turned into an anxious look at this hamster, and to save the police from embarrassment, Tatsu offered to keep the hamster for the police. In the evening, Meiko saw Tatsu looking tired, and as a good wife, she took the initiative to cook something for their dinner. But it turns out that Meiko has never really touched the kitchen. Just look at the way she cuts vegetables. It's horrible. And sure enough, her cooking tastes really bad. Despite that, the dinner atmosphere became warmer as they discussed about vacation destinations for next summer. But as a former yakuza, Tatsu couldn't help but worry about the bad things that might happen. Because he was already negative thinking, he firmly rejected the vacation agenda that the family was discussing. After a while, suddenly there was a crying sound coming from in front of their house. Feeling suspicious, Himawari immediately checked the front of the house and found a little child who seemed to have been left alone there. They then decided to call the police and look for the child's parents. When Tatsu went to buy diapers at the convenience store, his former boss's wife thought that Tatsu's wife had given birth to a child. And as a result, everyone came to Tatsu's house to visit and congratulate them. In order to avoid misunderstandings, they explained the true incident. Then finally everyone agreed to take care of the child until his parents were found. This little boy was named Ryu. Since the presence of Ryu, Tatsu now looks happier. He also took the initiative to find a playmate for Ryu. But again, it happened. Because of his scary appearance, the mothers ran away with their children because they were scared. In his heart, Tatsu had a desire to give Ryu a brighter childhood, so that it wouldn't be like his gloomy childhood. In the midst of trying to realize it, Tatsu received a request for help from an acquaintance old woman. At that time, there was a group of people who were troubling. They were loyal followers of Boss Kondo, who was trying to force a teacher to sign a piece of document. Although she looked gentle and obedient, it turned out that this teacher had a loud voice and sharp words when angry. Tatsu's presence made Boss Kondo's men feel afraid and chose to leave the place. The teacher then explained Boss Kondo's plan to buy the school building to turn it into a supermarket. For refusing Boss Kondo's request, the school experienced various forms of terror and violence, until finally making students at the school choose to resign and not go to school. This sad situation made everyone sad, including Tatsu. A mother he knew approached Tatsu. She asked for his help to protect the school with the power he had, hoping to stop the acts of violence that were happening. Tatsu finally went home and discussed the matter with Meiko. After a long discussion, Meiko finally agreed for Tatsu to help, but she had her own condition, which was that Tatsu must not use violence in solving problems. Hearing this, Tatsu planned to invite his old friend Shirakawa Torajiro. He was a yakuza with the focus and experience to be a school guard, but as a former yakuza, even the best discussions still use muscles. Instead of talking casually, they are more like being said to be fighting. While talking, a woman named Koharu, who turned out to be Torajiro's sister, suddenly appeared from a distance. Thinking they were fighting, Koharu intended to break it up. She also tried to hit Tatsu, but was easily defeated. When the fight happened, the scene was like in a drama series, and the close proximity to Tatsu made Koharu's heart beat faster. Koharu was salted and immediately fell in love with Tatsu's good looks. While at home, Masaru and Meiko were talking. Masaru started negative thinking and suspected that Ryu, the child they found yesterday, was very similar to Tatsu. Masaru thought that maybe the child was the result of Tatsu's relationship with another woman. Meiko, who heard this, was even more affected. Meiko also responded with a serious attitude and slapped Masaru in anger. The next day, Tatsu and Masaru did not run out of ideas to promote the school. They finally made a promotional video for the school. Their intention was to make an introductory video, but instead of being interesting, the result was like an action movie trailer. However, here they did not give up. They also distributed flyers along the way to promote the school. Although in the end, they looked like thugs trying to extort people. After seeing the video, Koharu decided to come to the school and apply as a teacher. In conclusion, she did it because wanting to get close to Tatsu, but in a subtle way, and used an additional reason that allowed her to get closer to Tatsu. However, Ryu, who became the first student at the school, immediately hit it off with Koharu. Seeing Ryu and Koharu's closeness, Masaru again pretended to smell something wrong. He immediately told this information to Meiko. This made Mikyu negative thinking towards Tatsu, and Mikyu began to think that Ryu was the child of Tatsu's relationship with Koharu. Interesting, but complicated. The next day, the school was visited by another yakuza group. Tatsu was immediately alert and prepared to fight again. But unexpectedly, it turned out that they came to enroll their grandson in school. Seeing that Tatsu was known among the yakuza in that place, they decided to entrust their trust to Tatsu in order to look after their grandson. So this little boy became the second student after Ryu. On the same day, Mikyu, who was very curious about Koharu, finally managed to meet in front of the school. The atmosphere was full of tension. Even Mikyu and Koharu exchanged glances, and they were both ready to fight. These two women were like two warriors getting ready for battle. Plus, that day coincided with the school sports festival. They all participated, and the rivalry between the two women reached its peak. The witnesses were not only the students, but also the yakuza of the Tatsu group. So the women competed to grab the opponent's headband, with all the means and skills at their disposal. Eventually, the ladies unleashed their signature moves, from unusual techniques to even dangerous ones. The men were not to be outdone. They were also involved in this battle, with their own strategies and tactics. Finally, after a long battle, the formidable Mikyu emerged victorious in the women's competition. Although there were only 2 participants in the children's competition, everyone was excited and happy. Laughter and happy faces filled the school area as they enjoyed the competition. Elsewhere, Boss Kondo was angry to see the school still running smoothly. He decided to visit the school with his men. He was very confident that Tatsu would recognize him. However, Kondo felt very disappointed that Tatsu didn't remember him at all. And of course, this caused the atmosphere to become tense. In her attempt to protect Tatsu, the brave Koharu suddenly hit Kondo's boss. Seeing their boss being treated like this, they looked unhappy and warned Tatsu that they would retaliate before leaving the area. As time passed, the school grew with the number of students increasing. This was a proof that this school's development was indeed real, since Tatsu had come to look after it. On the other hand, Tatsu also felt grateful and happy, because life in this school gave him a sense of family warmth that he had been missing. Witnessing Tatsu's happiness, Mikyu also felt happiness. They both felt that the presence of the child they had adopted as a family member had brought many positive changes and happiness. One morning, Mikyu, who was still haunted by feelings of suspicion, felt the need to talk one-on-one with Koharu. Her mind was still plagued with the thought that the child they found was Koharu and Tatsu's child. But Koharu's explanation finally made Mikyu realize that she had misunderstood. Mikyu felt ashamed of her misunderstanding. Things get even more complicated when a truck crashes into their school fence, and a black car appears to kidnap Himawari and Ryu. Seeing that, Masaru tried to protect the two, but instead of succeeding, he was easily thrown out and fainted. Tatsu and the others immediately ran after the black car. Seeing a gap between the two cars, Tatsu dramatically jumped into the kidnapper's car to help his 2 children. Even Torajiro also joined the chase to help Tatsu catch the mastermind behind all this. Finally, after a drama-filled chase, they could stop the kidnapper. After the chase was over, Tatsu and the others went to the hospital where Masaru was being treated. It turned out that Masaru was still unconscious due to a serious head wound. In grief, Tatsu began to suspect that Boss Kondo was behind this kidnapping, and this made Tatsu feel the need for revenge. Seeing Tatsu, who wanted to avenge him, Torajiro didn't hesitate to move closer to his side, like a flashback to the past. With fierce bodies full of tattoos, these 2 strongest yakuza are ready to show their power again. When they arrived at Boss Kondo's places, they were greeted by hundreds of his followers. Torajiro throws down a challenge to them, and with that, the conflict begins. In the facing of this situation, they also prepared themselves as best they could for battle. Various preparations were made together with other members. In the midst of the busy preparations for battle, good news came from Masaru. He finally woke up from his stupor. Without waiting any longer, even still limping, Masaru immediately joined Tatsu to participate in the upcoming battle. Here, Tatsu's group seemed to be busy selecting weapons. and they were also carefully gathering a large amount of gunpowder from their various contacts. The preparations they were making had again become a hot gossip discussed by many people, and began to attract the attention of the local people. They imagined how fierce the battle would be. Apparently, news of their preparations reached the boss Kondo's men, who immediately reported this. Then suddenly, the yakuza old man who enrolled his grandson in Tatsu's school appeared. He intended to join forces with boss Kondo, hoping to avenge Tatsu for their past. Like the quote said, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Feeling that he had additional support, boss Kondo gladly accepted the yakuza's help. It was time for the battle to take place. Before leaving, Miku prayed that Tatsu could return safely. Meanwhile, boss Kondo's group, dressed all in black, marched to the battle site. Suddenly, there was a sound that surprised boss Kondo's group. They thought it was the sound of gunshots, but it turned out to be the sound of fireworks set off by Tatsu's group. Very unexpectedly, they were greeted not by enemy lines in battle, but by people celebrating the festival. It turned out that Tatsu had used the gunpowder they thought was for bombs to become gunpowder for fireworks in celebration of the festival. Finally, a shocking fact was revealed. The yakuza who turned out to be part of boss Kondo was a spy agent. He only aims to secure evidence of lawlessness from boss Kondo so that he can be arrested by the police. The police operating in the area then signal to arrest boss Kondo. Feeling trapped and betrayed, boss Kondo was angry and the battle began. Although only consisting of 3 people, Tatsu and his friends were able to deal with boss Kondo's men who were so many in number. But suddenly, Koharu arrived, although she was late, but in fact they became stronger in battle. Realizing that his men were overwhelmed, boss Kondo also felt the need to intervene. However, the opponent he faced was a legendary yakuza. Of course, this is not comparable, so it's no surprise that boss Kondo was easily conquered. Tatsu then announced that they had won the fight. Everyone who attended the festival was happy. Until finally, after being defeated, boss Kondo then revealed the truth again, that it was not him who kidnapped the children. The police who heard this also confirmed that it was not Kondo who kidnapped the children. So it turns out that the perpetrators of the kidnapping were 2 men who were also the perpetrators who left Ryu in front of Tatsu's house. Initially, they kidnapped the child to demand ransom from the parents, but due to the many police presence, they preferred to leave the child in house, hoping to pick him back up one day. After a long interrogation, the child's parents' house was finally found. Tatsu and Miku decided to take the child back home. Although it was sad to be separated, this was the best thing to do. Not to forget, Miku gave many messages and thanked to Ryu for his presence in her family. Although it was brief, but their days feel so special since the presence of Ryu, and they must remain enthusiastic in living the coming days. Closed with happiness, this movie was ended.